We will have more about First Ward Alderman Joe Moreno's proposal shortly, but first, our panel. Whitney Reynolds, host of The Whitney Reynolds Show, Anthony Anderson, Chairman, Republican Precinct Project, and Steve Edwards, Deputy Director for the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago. Welcome to you all today.
Thank you.
Now, the primary is 5 days away, and Anthony, we'll let you go at this first. You're a Republican Party leader. Handicap this race. Is it a lock for Bruce Rauner?
It definitely is a lock for Bruce Rauner. At this point, the Illinois Manufacturers Association had a poll, We Ask America, and they had Bruce Rauner at 46%. The next competitor was about 20 points away. Dan Rutherford was at about 9 percentage points. So, you know, this is basically Bruce Rauner's race to lose at this point, and he won't be losing the race, actually.
What are the factors you think that brought him here? Is it the cash? Is it the
Oh, absolutely. I think the Republicans have finally found a person that they can pay their way to get to the dance. Now, once it gets to the dance, that's going to be a different story, meaning the general election. But the fact of the matter is, I think the union advertisements, I think they sort of hurt Dillard in a way. I mean, you had the Illinois Education Association, you had the Illinois Federation of Teachers, you had the Fraternal Order of Police, and then you had ASME come out to support Bruce Rauner. And then you had the State Journal Register come out, and they supported the Peoria Journal Star. These are more left-leaning organizations, so most Republicans are wondering, well, just why are these Republicans or these Democrats supporting Dillard at this point during the campaign?
I mean, I think that definitely is true among the base Republican voters. I think the hope on the Dillard side, as you well know, is that they can help with the attacks against Rauner, maybe soften the support against Rauner. And at the same time, maybe there are some Democrats and some independents who might pull a Republican ballot.
Well, there's definitely going to be that, because the word is already out. Hey, listen, come Tuesday, cross lines, pull a Republican ballot. If you want to have any chance, come to the general election. Otherwise, this race is going to be over. And as the unions go in the state of Illinois, we may be looking at a situation like Walker up in Wisconsin, the Indiana situation, or the Michigan situation, or the Ohio situation. All of those where governors have came in and pretty much essentially gutted the unions, and that's what the plan is in the state of Illinois.
Well,
if Rauner were to place it.
Dillard's number did surge with the union support and with some of those union ads, so they seem to be working somewhat.
They softened them up, definitely.
I feel like with the younger votes too. I know I was at the dog park yesterday, and all the girls around my age, we were all talking about it, and they were like, you either know about Rauner or you don't, because all the ads were either targeted so against him or for him. So at this point, whenever you're just like watching the TV for a second, that's what people are seeing.
So you're saying any publicity is good publicity here?
You know, I think, well, one of the girls said exactly, like, you either love him or you hate him based on how you're hearing that ad.
You heard how he told Natasha Korecki from the Sun-Times that he was the 0.01% of the 1%. Steve, could that backfire in the voting booth?
Well, it could, but I think, you know, what's interesting here is a lot of people who have been skeptical of his campaign would point to Mitt Romney's candidacy and the problems that he had convincing enough Americans that Romney was identifiable with their concerns. I think Rauner has taken a lot of steps, and he's done a lot of it through his advertising campaign, to try and portray himself as authentic, as relatable, as understandable. The issue here is not so much wealth, it's what that wealth says about your ability to sort of connect and understand and to authentically identify with real world concerns. I think the other thing here is I think there are a lot of Illinoisans, and we're seeing it in some of the poll results for why people have supported Rauner in the polls thus far, about his, you know, leadership qualities, about his ability to sort of stick it to the powers in Springfield. I think there are people who like what the wealth represents when it comes to independence and perhaps success. And given the fiscal challenges Illinois faces, there's a lot in the broader Rauner picture that they're trying to present that is resonating right now, at least according to the polls.
Anthony, in your eyes, who's the best opponent for Governor Quinn?
The best opponent against Governor Quinn at this point right now is Rauner, because there's going to be a contrast between, you know, those people who always thought that, you know, Governor Quinn was the person that's always helped the little guy. And then you're going to have Bruce Rauner, the, you know, exorbitant, you know, millionaire or billionaire at this point, and he's going to come across and say, hey, listen, we're going to straighten up this state. We're going to do it through a business format. We're going to straighten out the school situation in Chicago, and we're going to lower taxes. And then we're going to also create some term limits for some of these career politicians. And so from that standpoint, I think most Illinoisans want to see, hey, listen, we do need to see change in Illinois. We see that, you know, this state's going down, you know, down a precipitous way that, you know, it can't be controlled. And so from that standpoint, maybe we need some fresh breath in the air in the state of Illinois.
I will say, though, that I would not count out Governor Quinn. He is a remarkably effective campaigner. We've seen it throughout his political career, including the last cycle where many people thought he would lose as well. It's a different dynamic this time.
Well, yeah, but
Bill Brady was more conservative.
You can't deny the fact that Illinois right now is ranked in the bottom third in terms of unemployment.
And we need someone that knows how to handle money, and he's proving that he knows how to handle his money.
The only other thing I would say, too, that would support a case for a candidate like Rauner or even Dillard, if they were to emerge, is if you look at the last 2010 general election, the difference between Quinn and Brady was 32,000 votes in the end. Half of Pat Quinn's vote came from Cook County. He only won 4 counties in the entire state. If Rauner can do even slightly better than that, and by having a slightly more moderate hue, a significantly more moderate hue, the odds would suggest that that would be in his favor. We'll see what happens. But I think if you're in the Rauner campaign right now, if you can get through Tuesday, you feel good about the broader dynamic.
If you remember 2010, too, the polls were so wrong.
The polls were absolutely
and
wrong.
So
the polls had Brady winning, as a matter of fact.
So we'll have to see what happens here.
Percentage points.
Let's shift gears now to another race. The mayor of Chicago. The contest is still a year away, but the only candidate so far, Rahm Emanuel, is now starring on the sides of buses and billboards and in a CNN documentary. Critics of the mayor say this is a love letter and the timing is free publicity. Whitney, is it?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, he doesn't like a lot of reporters to get up in his grill on a normal day. Like, you know, you don't see Mayor Emanuel doing a ton of interviews. In fact, he's pretty short most of the time whenever he's answering questions. So it is interesting that all of a sudden he's letting these people follow him around. And I watched the show and I was like, oh, interesting. Like, I haven't seen that side of him. On another note, though, as well, it also showed the school issue here in Chicago. And on my show, we had Brown Elementary, where we were helping, you know, go in and help out that school. Well, we had to put our whole production on hold because we weren't sure if they were going to close or not. So it definitely hit home watching that show the other day, because those kids at Brown, if their school would have been closed, they would have had to walk across some very difficult gang lines.
Anthony, fair depiction of the city and the mayor?
Well, it is a fair depiction in a sense. I think it's sort of rang the lines of you know, an infomercial, but it's clear that the mayor wants to. It's clear that the mayor wants to go further in his political career, whether it go from, you know, being a mayor to United States Senator or even President of the United States. That's clear, that's obvious. But the one problem that the mayor is going to have is the fact that, again, you're closing schools in minority communities. If you say 10% of the population in the Chicago public school system is white, but you're closing 54 schools, and all those schools are located in Black and Hispanic communities, I mean, there has to be some balance right there. You just can't say we're closing it because of the numbers. The numbers don't add up. There has to be something different. After all, these are your constituents. How will you address those concerns coming election cycle?
Steve, does this open the door for a challenger? We're hearing rumblings of Toni Preckwinkle, although she hasn't committed yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot's been made of what President Preckwinkle did not say, and she did not go so far as to say she would rule out entirely a run for mayor. What she did say is she's running for the job she currently has, that she has every intention of filling out her term. I would take her at her word on that, but I think the fact that she didn't go further leaves open the possibility. I think it's good politics for her regardless of what she does, because it sort of adds to not only her allure, but also potentially her power and sway with others. I think the real question for those who are critics of the mayor is, if not someone like Toni Preckwinkle, then who? And that's been a perennial question in Chicago going long before this administration to the administration of Mayor Daley. Unless opponents of the mayor can sort of coalesce around somebody with organization and money, I think that things look good for this mayor right now, and this series is helping him. He's at this. This is a story that portrays him at the center of lots of intractable problems, and he's somebody who is positioning himself. He's the thrust of the whole narrative.
One more race we'll look at quickly. Next week, voters will also decide who will challenge Illinois' senior Senator Dick Durbin. He's been in office for 17 years. Republicans are running State Senator businessman Jim Overweiss. He's a perennial candidate who's won a state Senate seat. And Doug Truax, a West Point grad and a political newcomer. Anthony, how worried should Dick Durbin be?
Dick Durbin, I will be a little worried, because as of now, I think Overweiss stated that he's about 8 percentage points behind in polls when it comes to a head-to-head matchup with Dick Durbin. And that's telling. I mean, in a situation like this, you have a sitting senator that's an incumbent that's that close in the polls, this close to the election. Something's not right somewhere. And to just think, we're just in the primaries for the Republicans. If the Republicans see blood in the water when it comes to Dick Durbin, they're going to go after this guy full force. And it's going to be outside influences.
Jim Oberweis has said some things in the past that have alienated women and minorities,
I mean,
the two groups that the Republicans are desperately trying to bring into the tent.
We can't forget also that the incident with the Soldier Field incident with him in a helicopter. I mean, with the immigration policy.
Well, and he's run 3 times for statewide office, twice for Senate, once for governor. He's lost all 3 occasions. That's not to say he couldn't win a 4th time, but I think it's going to be a tall order if he were to be the nominee.
In TV, we can't leave during sweeps. It is a few days. You know, it's coming up on the election. Why is he in Florida? You know, like, why is he in Florida?
That's the question this week, isn't it?
Yeah. Jim Oberweis is vacationing before the polls. We'll tackle our last topic right now, another huge political question in Chicago. Paper or plastic? Should the city ban those plastic shopping bags? One alderman says basically that most of them end up, or many of them end up as litter. Steve, is this a good idea?
Well, here's what you have. You have about 380 billion of these bags in circulation in the United States. You have some cities like San Francisco. You also have cities like Mexico City that have banned these bags. There's no question that they are a real problem from a litter standpoint, but also over time an environmental standpoint because they don't degrade fast enough. So the question is, how do you solve that problem? Do you do it through a ban? Do you do it through a tax? Do you do it through a surcharge, or do you try and incentivize consumers to make another choice? I do think it's an important public policy question. I think it's right for Alderman Moreno to raise it. The question is, what's actually going to do it most effectively? Business owners are concerned by a tax or a ban outright, but I actually think this is something that bears real consideration.
Whitney, we'll let you have the last word on this.
Some of the grocery stores have already bought out. I know whenever we don't do our year just a month, a couple months at a time, these grocery stores could have already bought for 2 years. So it's going to cost them, and we already lost Dominic's. I don't want other people to shut their doors because of these plastic bags. And I reuse mine for my dog.
There is that.
I recycle.
We will leave it right there. We thank our guests, Whitney Reynolds, Anthony Anderson, and Steve Edwards.